Introducing Monarch Mindwear, the neural headband that filters out doubt, fear, and original thought. Think faster, feel less, belong completely. Monarch Mindwear trademark, a product of Solaris Group.
For your next reality jump. Rations, radios, and replacement soles. Open 24 hours a day on most timelines. Luna Mart, now serving realities 4 through 6.
It's like so contagious to see.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about God. I see that which has been made hidden. As a part of a family and explorers of consciousness. I'm the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void. Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live. It is October the 14th on a Tuesday. It's nighttime. How about that? October 14th, Tuesday, 2025. And there is a slight chance of finishing this fantastic voyage that we've been on with the Monroe stuff, journey, whatever you want to call it. It's coming to an end, folks, as far as the main story is concerned. And I think I have Flying Bryson here with me, as well as Wolf. Wolf, did you get those? I hear your voice, man. Did you get those technical issues ironed out in the production room? I can see his thing lighten up, but I can't hear him. It's like he has to take his headphones off to talk or something. What's going on, Bryce? What's happening with Wolf? Or did we lose him in the ether or what?
I don't know. I can't hear him now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, man. The signal might have got you or something. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I can hear him.
I think it's the signal.
Yeah.
Lost in the void.
The signal's getting you, dude. You got to be careful. Speaking of which, Halloween is coming up very, very soon, very fast. So we are getting ready for that. There's new programming and new stuff coming into the station, even Easter eggs. So pay attention if you're listening live on the radio station, because we'll be giving away stuff. If you can crack the codes on these eggs, that is. We got some cool stuff planned for Halloween. But we have to finish this Monroe journey, we are in the third book, Ultimate Journeys by Robert A. Monroe. Robert A. Monroe. Not Robert C. B. D., the priest, or whoever you guys looked up and wherever you're getting your info from. Let's set the record straight. It's Robert A. Monroe.
Can we just say the Robert Monroe?
We can, but I mean, there's people online that are like saying, "Oh, he was a pedophile" and all this stuff, and it's like, where are you getting your information from, man? It's just some dude just spitting out stuff that it's like nobody does any research, You know what I mean? As long as somebody speaks with confidence on the web, you believe them, right? Do you know what the word con man comes from? It comes from the word confidence, because it's easy to fool people when you sound confident. Right, so just do your own research and you'll find the truth about a lot of this stuff. And that means more than flicking through a couple of pages, or even more than asking AI, because here's the thing. I don't know if you figured this out yet. AI is a learning machine, so lots of times it's wrong. So you have to double check it. They're still training it. Doesn't mean it's right all the time. All right. So anything else? I can't think of anything else. Nothing else. Exhausted I am, just to be honest with you. I didn't get I don't know what it was. I was trying to get out of body last night and tossed and turned and tossed and turned until like 5 a.m. So, that happens sometimes when you're trying to get out of body. Are you guys ready? Y'all ready to finish this? I know some people are like, let's move on from Robert Monroe. But it's so hard, man. The journey's so crazy. Okay. This is called The New Direction. So remember that before, in the previous broadcast, he found this park. So he'd taken all these journeys to the edges of consciousness and the universe and all this stuff. But then he found this park that was designed by humans for people to transition when they die. Like, so when they die, it's like a transition place. And apparently we created it as humans, which is cool. And I think, I don't know what he means by now that I know what had to be done, but we're going to find out. So now that I knew what had to be done, one further question arose. How could I organize all that I had experienced into such a shape that it could be absorbed and put into practice by others? That's a really good question. Not only that, how could those experiences, which for me had stretched over years, be compressed into a time frame which others could find practical and appropriate? This was not a process that could be established by trial and error. For what we were shortly to be handling was quite literally a matter of life and death. It had to be as nearly right as possible the first time. and events in my personal life were telling me that there was no time to spare. But I was fortunate, or perhaps it was not good fortune, but the fulfillment or completion of a design began more than 3 decades ago when we first commenced research into human consciousness. For at my disposal, I had all the resources of our institute, which for many years had shown that it was possible to bring individuals right up to that transitional point between physical life and death, and enable some of them at least to see into the beyond. That our procedures were safe, and that our participants benefited enormously and in so many ways have been proved beyond doubt. My left brain told me that 2 things were needed. The first was research into the frequencies of brain waves translated into sound that would permit the individual mind consciousness to travel safely beyond the transitional point and to return when the task was accomplished. The second was a program that would be suitable and effective for the wide variety of people who might be attracted by the prospect of service to those no longer in physical existence. So, with my closest colleagues, I set to work. The simplest thing was to find a title for the program, and they called it Lifeline. The first Lifeline program took place at the Institute during the week beginning June 22nd, 1991. In the following 14 months, some 200 people participated in a 6-day intensive learning process. Among those attending were physicians, psychologists, engineers, researchers, business executives, psychiatrists, writers, attorneys, educators, therapists, musicians, and artists. All were graduates of at least one previous institute program, as this was a prerequisite for attendance at Lifeline. Apart from that, they represented widely divergent backgrounds, interests, lifestyles, and previous experiences with exploration of consciousness. Yet at the end of each program, almost all attested to their ability to revisit the reception center, or the park that we were talking about earlier, and may also acknowledge that they now knew for certain that they would survive the physical death process. It was indeed surprised. It was clear that the process could be taught. And following the first session, I had reasoned that the phenomena reported might possibly have been unique, or just to that particular group. But the reports from the second session might again possibly be coincidental. With the third session, however, it really did seem as if the process was viable. 10 sessions later, I did not see how there could be any doubt. We've been able to accomplish what we set out to do. And Lifeline is designed to be effective without respect to any specific belief held by the individual participant, and to instill knowledge through direct experience. It is a no, in quotations, a no system, and does of itself negate any current held beliefs with the possible exception of nihilism. Yeah, it's hard to fight that good old nihilism. That's a tough one to fight. Well, the program has certain goals, and these are to release all fears related to the physical death process, to establish a familiarity with different states of consciousness until these states become knowns instead of beliefs, to generate ongoing communication and relationships with other human minds active in other states of consciousness, to incorporate such acquired knowledge both consciously and at the non-conscious level into physical life, thought, functions, and activity, and to ensure upon the cessation of physical life existence, for whatever reason, that such knowledgeable human mind consciousness will shift without interruption to other forms of existence. This means by which these goals are achieved is by development and extension of the methods and techniques that have been evolved and refined at the Institute over many years. One of the hallmarks of these methods and techniques is the use of the term focus level. And if you guys have ever done the Monroe tapes, you'll hear that a lot, which is to indicate and identify in a convenient and easily understood way a particular state of consciousness. Hitherto programs had taken participants through Focus 3, which is mind-brain synchronicity, Focus 10, which is mind awake and alert but body asleep, and Focus 12, which is a state of expanded awareness, Focus 15, the state of no time, to Focus 21, the edge of time-space where it is possible to contact other energy systems. Now, in pursuit of the program's theme of service to those who have died, it was necessary to venture beyond. To help our participants, we need to identify in a similar way those states beyond 21 to which they would be introduced and where they would be able to act calmly and objectively. We did so as follows. So he goes on. Focus 22 is where humans still in physical existence have only partial consciousness. In this state would be those suffering from delirium or from chemical dependency or alcoholism or from dementia. It would also include patients who are anesthetized or comatose. Experiences here might be remembered as dreams or hallucinations. Then there was Focus 23, which is a level inhabited by those who have recently left physical existence, but who either have not been able to recognize and accept this or are unable to free themselves from the ties of the Earth life system. It includes those from all periods of time. Then there's Focus levels 24 through 26. This covers the belief system territories, occupied by non-physical humans from all periods and areas who have accepted and subscribed to various premises and concepts. These would include, obviously, religious and philosophical beliefs that postulate some form of post-physical existence. And then there's Focus 27. Now, here's the side of what we may call the reception center or the park, which is the hub of it, the central hub. This is an artificial synthesis created by human minds, a way station designed to ease the trauma and shock of the transition out of the physical reality. It takes on the form of various Earth environments in order to be acceptable to the enormously wide variety of newcomers. And finally, Focus 28, beyond not only time and space, but human thought. Residents in 28 are beyond limits any return to a physical human body. So those who are trained in the lifeline system become familiar and comfortable with these different states, and each individual is invited to create his own personal and special place within Focus 27, a place to which he may return at will. The forms that these places take are as varied and unique as the participants themselves, ranging, for example, from log cabins by quiet streams to clumps of trees or South Sea islands, palaces of crystal, and corners of one's heart. Return to one's place in Focus 27 is facilitated by the use of a personal identification signal code, which is a self-chosen symbol or representation which the individual creates and installs. It functions as a kind of resonant homing device to guide the individual back. Once participants are familiar with the range of focus levels, they are advised how to assist those no longer in physical existence who need help. They phase gradually into Focus 27, and there they may ask for help and guidance for themselves. Then they return to Focus 23, sometimes accompanied by a guide or helper, where they may be attracted to a situation in which their assistance is needed in order for someone to move onward. It may be that someone refuses to accept the fact of his or her physical death, or is unwilling to let go owing to some perceived gain from continuing to be attached to the physical. The participant seeks to communicate with this individual, encouraging him or her to release and move onward. Now, if this encouragement is successful, as it often is, the two, perhaps accompanied by the guide, move together towards Focus 27. On the way, some individuals will slip away into the belief system territories of Focus 24 through 26, where they will be welcomed by those of their own particular creed or faith. Others will continue to the reception center in Focus 27, where they may be greeted by loved ones no longer in physical existence. Here they have the opportunity to be counseled as to the next step to take along the path to growth. And with regard to this step, several options are available to the new arrivals, among them the following. So here's some options. Reunion with loved ones who have previously made the transition, or communication with those who are still alive in the physical state. That's probably the one I'd pick. Just say hi, bye. Renewal of contract and return to the original self, or the I there. Return to experience in another earth human life, or a meeting and discussion with those of the same belief, which may involve departure to that belief system territory. Assuming temporarily the retrieving role, or assuming physical life activity in other forms, like non-human, at other sites or elsewhere in the universe. And finally, participating in studies and exploration of other phases of the consciousness continuum. When the decision is made, the individual is free to move along that chosen path. One further element in the process needs to be mentioned. Lifetime participants are encouraged to seek as much information as they can from the subjects of their retrievals. By this are meant personal details such as name, age, address, or state or country of origin, date and cause of death, like road accidents or illness, natural disaster, warfare, and so on, or their occupation and any other details that may seem relevant. Communication is generally nonverbal and often by means of a rote or a ball of thought. Where the information received is sufficiently full, it is passed later to the Lifeline Research Department, which sets a process of verification or validation in motion. In most instances, it has not so far proved possible to obtain enough of this kind of information to make the effort worthwhile. This type of formal questioning is often inappropriate to the circumstances of the retrieval. But on a few occasions, enough information has become available for secure verification to be made. A person of that name, age, and place died in that manner at that time. And for most participants, this doesn't matter. They're so convinced of the reality of the process that they're not concerned about this kind of checking. The Institute, however, feels that it is important for this to happen. Although once 20 or 30 instances have been verified, there would seem little purpose in looking for more. Participants in the program sometimes make contact in Focus 23 with someone they recognize, a relative or a friend who died recently and who recognizes them also. When this happens, there is a noticeable difference in the, quote, feeling of the encounter, much like the difference between walking into a room of strangers and walking into a room where one is surprised to find a sister or a brother. Recognition is immediate, and there is a heightening of the energy in the exchanges which follow, and more often the participants are drawn to someone who they've never met before. It may be someone from a different culture or epoch of time, of any age, color, or creed. What surprises many participants, however, is that while they're engaged in their mission, they discover that at the same time, they're retrieving lost parts of themselves. These may appear as past life selves who remained in Focus 23, and some are found who settled in the belief system territories of Focus 24 and 26, and who had begun, through gradual doubt of the beliefs they once had held, to fall through the cracks, as it were, of that particular system. Others may appear as fragments of current life personalities, aspects which had fled or been torn away from the core self, like, for example, child selves who had escaped from the trauma and pain of physical or emotional abuse in their families and now seek to be reunited. The guidance that may be requested in Focus 27 manifests, according to our participants, in many different forms. It may appear externally or sensed internally. It may be constant through all the experiences or may change from time to time. Reports include mention of a glowing white shape, an individual called Sam, glowing white shape in quotations, or an individual called Sam, a hooded figure who revealed himself as a famous film star. What's up, Jenny? A little dog, the color blue, a human hand, and the voices saying, "We are here." Some participants do not see guidance as separate from themselves in any way. Guidance and I are one, as one report says. At this point, I must make it clear that a very large number accept their transition without difficulty and are not to be found in Focus 23. This number includes those who have prepared themselves beforehand or been prepared by others so that they may easily sever their ties with the Earth life system, as well as those who are strongly fortified by their beliefs. They move past Focus 23 of their own accord to Focus 24, 26, and 27 or beyond. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Robert Monroe's programs, then you probably have no idea what in the hell, he's talking about. But I don't see a lot of people. I mean, when there's a Discord right now that goes to Robert Monroe's programs that has all of them in, well, not all of them, but a lot of the old gateway tapes. And it's really cool to be a part of a community that's really open-minded, because for the most part, when we move around in the real world, we just run into people that are already believe in what they believe. They already need to be told that someone's already told them how things are, and it validates their feelings and makes them feel safe, and that's where they stay. But for the most part, like, I've met a ton of conscious explorers in that Gateway Discord. There's a lot of people in there. See, I thought it was a small group of people, but it's really not. Anyways, I'm sidetracking here. Just see if you can, like, if you get in Discord, look up the Gateway tapes. That way, if you're not familiar with any of this stuff. So the denizens of Focus 23 vary as much as humanity itself, setting aside those who are known to their retrievers. They're reported as originating from anywhere in the world, and a few have been waiting for 2 or 3 centuries or more, but most have left physical existence quite recently, during the last 20 or 30 years. Many of them were victims of accidents or natural or man-made disasters, and sudden death figure frequently. And for the most part, they are ready and willing to leave, although some show concern about loved ones, relatives, or comrades, and refuse to depart until they are reunited or reassured. Yeah, I can imagine, man. Like, if you really do, like, pop out in the etheric, like when you die, I can imagine, especially if you're not subscribed to any particular belief system, it might be a little rough, you know. Reports by participants of those they have encountered include mentions of several youngsters killed in road accidents, a 45-year-old man who choked on food, a classical pianist from Prague who died from AIDS-related complications, a mother and 2 children from the Nigerian province of Biafra who starved to death, a soldier killed in the Gulf War, a stillborn baby from Milwaukee, and a teenage girl who overdosed on pills. And in some instances, much detailed information is gathered. One participant came across a woman born on March 22nd of 1922 who died in Ogden, Utah, March 15th in 1972, who gave her own name, her husband's, and the name of her 3 children. That would be pretty freaky. Another example is the pianist from Prague mentioned above who disclosed his name and age, 28, that he lived with his parents, studied at the Conservatoire in Paris, and died in a hospital. A third involves a 57-year-old female graphic designer, name which is given, who died in December of 1991 of cardiac arrest during bypass surgery at a hospital in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, during the retrieval process, participants have no sense of fear and generally are unaffected by emotion. Exceptions to the latter may occur when contact is made with a relative or loved one, or with what the participant realizes is a lost part of himself. The following extract from a report illustrates this. Can you imagine if you... I'm just saying, Wolf, can you hear me? Are you there, brother? Or Bryce, somebody? Can you imagine, like, taking the New Age people into this place and, like, let's go into this Lifeline thing and just surround the place in crystals and, you know, get the incense out. And then all of a sudden, all these dead people start talking. I don't know, man. I think I don't even know if they would allow that stuff. Okay, here's one. Yeah. I didn't hear a response from you guys, so I'm just going to keep going. So during an experience, I found a small boy, 3 years old, in a pool of light in Focus 23. There was no other people visible except for this young boy. I felt such emotion and anguish and pain at seeing the small child. When I went to take him up, my guide told me that all the emotion was not necessary. After the guide and I took the child up, I felt a sense of completion and on some level a sense of homecoming, as if another piece of me was at rest now. When the child was led away by those who would, quote, process him, I knew he would be cared for and that everything was absolutely as it should be. After the tape experience, I felt that things indeed had shifted around. I'm slowly becoming all of who I am. And this was some guy named John A. Baylor from Virginia Beach. What up, Alan? Often it is when the participant returns to normal consciousness at the end of the experience that the emotions flood in. There may be a delayed response to the shock of meeting a loved one whom you might have thought never to have seen again, or to the sadness and desperation of some of those in Focus 23. But as you become more accustomed to the process, the more natural it seems to be. That this young child was killed in a road accident or that mother died leaving 2 children becomes somehow acceptable, and the reports contain very few references to misery or tragedy. So in Focus 27, all will be as it should be, and the only emotion is love. As I had discovered previously, those who had met with disabling accidents or illnesses, or who had been injured or maimed in some way, recovered their wholeness when they arrived in Focus 27. One report referred to a man whose mother had been prescribed the drug. I hate these freaking drug names, man. What's up, Jenny? Thalidomide. Easy enough. She was prescribed this drug during pregnancy and who had been born with only the vestiges of legs. He had lived for nearly 35 years, and he was English, and the drug had been introduced into England in 1958. In Focus 23, he was still deformed, and in 27, where he was welcomed by his mother, he was whole and fit as he had never been in physical life. Now, not all of those who brought out of Focus 23 do arrive at 27, at least not immediately. Some move into the belief system territories, and others may simply disappear. And perhaps they find that their connections with Earth are not yet broken, or that they have not yet reached full acceptance of their state. One participant reported encountering a girl who had died in childbirth. She conveyed to him that her baby had died, and she had to stay to take care of it. Another account referred to an African boy aged 9 who starved to death in the desert in October of 1990. He would not leave Focus 23 until he had found his 3 younger brothers and his 2-year-old sister, who predeceased him. So I guess the boy died and his sisters died before he did, and he was like, I'm not leaving this place until I find my sisters. On occasions, the participant may return and find the reluctant traveler more willing at the second attempt, although this happens rarely. What we could not predict at all was how the participants themselves would react to the Lifeline experience. We felt it was very unlikely that there would be any adverse effects, especially as all participants were well versed in the Institute's methods, having attended one or usually more courses previously. How they did react is best told in their own words. So here's one guy talking about it. His name is Roy Washington. He's a doctor. And this is a doctor that started doing this Lifeline stuff at the Monroe Institute. And he says, the program as presented was excellent for me because I was led to realize how limiting belief systems are and how enclosed we are in them, mostly without our prior conscious knowledge. It has been a week of growth and expanding for me in many areas. The very thin phase between what we know as reality now, here, and there becomes apparent. Life as a whole has begun to take on a different perspective. Roy MD, or MD Roy, I guess he can't give his last name, Washington. Here's another one. The most important learning that took place for me in the Lifeline process was the realization that I see aspects of myself in others, and that the acceptance and subsequent embracing of those aspects, both positive and negative, is the retrieval process for me. I feel that unification of my total self has taken place in this manner. And that's from MR, whoever MR is in Maine. Here's another one. The most important thing I learned was the experienced objective reality of the imaginal realm, which I had believed was only a metaphor for personal issues in need of integration. The several retrievals were so unexpected and palpable, they have forced an opening through experience. I always thought and behaved as if they were real into other realities, but because this happened in the context of getting my mother into 27 and cutting the shroud-like bonds to her and my belief systems, it has been wonderfully disencumbering and gives me a keen awareness of parallel modes of processing of parallel consciousness. Issues of death and beyond feel very comfortable now. That's somebody from New York. He's got their name hidden. I think it's another doctor. Maybe that's a scientist. I don't know. I'm not good with acronyms. Another person from Albuquerque said, I learned that rescue and retrieval is not necessarily about performing a service to others, but rather about performing a service for ourselves, thus performing for others as well. Another person from Alaska. This one's definitely a doctor, I think. Never before had I felt like I had handled my mother's death. This week has truly freed me from my emotions surrounding this loss, and I believe it has freed her. SC from Alaska. A piece of me now exists in Focus 27. There's no more question in my mind where I will go when I die, and what I will be doing for the rest of my life. Bill Oakes in Oregon. This is from EA in California. So the other side, as it were, does not have to be perceived as a strange, eerie place beyond imagination, for it's just a phase away. A shift of perception along with a subtle awareness is all that is needed. KSC in Paris, from Paris, France, said, I have a new realization of truly being part of a whole. CSQ in Seville, Spain. I have learned that we can be of service beyond this reality, and in this reality using psychic gifts. One participant expressed very clearly how she had assimilated the experience, although during the week she did not retrieve any others from Focus 23. And she goes on to say, perhaps because I believe that one cannot give meaningful guidance without being balanced and whole oneself, I viewed that lifeline process of retrieval as reuniting with aspects of my total self to which, for one reason or another, I had no conscious access. These aspects would include past lives or simply powerful emotional thought forms that were keeping some of my energy blocked and limiting my awareness. The definition of the 3 levels beyond Focus 21 was highly suitable to this application, whereby Focus 22 and 23 were a reflection of any type of turmoil. Focus 24 and 25 were the source of the belief system or misinformation on which the confusion was based, and then Focus 27 provided the pure, clear light of one's essence. By going to Focus 27 first and reclaiming my own light, I was more able to face my own darkness than before. I feel a new sense of completion, peace, and harmony, and maybe next time I'll resonate in sufficient balance to help others who are lost in chaotic thought forms and darkness. Judith Taylor from New Jersey. I'm starting to get the impression, like, I think it's cool that these people are finding themselves while they're doing this stuff, but it would, for me, like, if this turned out to be a real thing, because I personally have never went out to any other system or anything like that and talked to people or whatever. I just haven't done that. Like, I just haven't done it. But if I did, if I went out to a system and was like helping people transition in like this death state or whatever, I don't know if I could focus on myself so much, you know, like, well, it's really helping me. All these people's death transitions are really making me a full like, I don't even think it would be about me, as crazy as that sounds for some reason. The Institute has a growing file of participants' accounts of their retrieval experiences. These are not confined to instances during the programs, and many find that when they return home, they're able to continue with the process, usually during sleep. And there are some who were involved in the process before joining the program, and there may be many more who have also been involved but do not remember. These accounts make a fascinating collection, and much of it highly poignant and moving. Outside the context of the program itself, many of the reports may have seemed to stretch into the realms of fantasy, but it is impossible to convince those who experienced these events that they were anything but absolutely real. The following extract from the files comes from a participant in one of the earliest programs. So he goes on to say, I picked up my helper in Focus 27 and went to 23 to wait. And just when I was about to give up finding anyone, a little Irish lady looked up at me and said, wait, don't you go back without me. And she immediately jumped into my vehicle, which was a double pyramid emerald. And then talked all the way to Focus 27. When we arrived and stepped out into the park, she told me her name was Elizabeth McGowan, or McCowan. And she was well aware that her physical life was over, and she had been waiting for me to take her to her husband and daughter, who were already in 27, to meet her when she arrived. She said she was from County Cork, and corrected me when I referred to it as Cork County. Her death occurred in 1919, and she had been a seamstress. Her husband was Richard, and her daughter, who appeared to be about 13, was Amy. And before I could find out any more, they all just disappeared. I was trying to decide what to do next when my father appeared, and this was unexpected and very emotional for me, as he and I had not resolved a lot of issues when he died in 1985. He had spent 8 years drinking heavily after my mother died, and I tried to support him as best as I could for 5 years, but felt he was going to destroy me. I had no contact with him for the last 3 years of my life, or his life, actually. When he appeared, I went through a range of emotions, the strongest being love, guilt, and sadness, that I could not stay with him. He did, however, give me a gift, and when I asked if we could stay together, he replied, I love you, but you need to remember why you came here and never forget your focus. At this point, Bob told us to leave 27, and I left with very mixed emotions, but realized that my father had given me forgiveness, freedom, and love. And what more could I ask for? Jim Green from Arlington, Virginia. As much as people love Halloween, they love the fun stuff of Halloween. They like to, Halloween is definitely fun. People like to get scared. We love to, play with our fears. But when you come to that reality that you're going to die, just like the guy says, and what about Bob? Your life is short. There is no doubt about it. You're going to die. Most people don't want to deal with that, man. They just don't. They don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to deal with it. And it's fine. I get it because it's not practical. And I do understand, also, too, that, before we keep going through this stuff, because it's probably going to get pretty deep. I also understand that one of the deepest reasons why people don't want to think about it or talk about it is because there's an underlying fear there, or they already have a belief system that they're acquired to, and they don't want to question that at all because they want to feel safe. And no one will ever admit that. What most people will say to you is, well, it's best not to even think about it. I'll worry about that when I'm dead. But here's the kicker with that. I think that's bullshit. I think that's a control system. I think when people tell you, don't explore your consciousness, don't even think about stuff outside this physical earth. Focus on everything on the earth, right? And when you're asleep, don't even worry about it then either. Just focus on what you got to do here. I think that's a control thing. I think you're supposed to ask really deep questions. I think you're supposed to ask why you're here. And I think you're supposed to explore your consciousness, just like these people are. These people had the guts enough to do it. PhDs, doctors, lawyers, artists, whatever. I don't care about their titles and statuses the way Monroe does, but they're just people that have guts enough to face it. And after facing it, that fear, and moving through consciousness, now they're helping other people who, for some reason, maybe weren't prepared for death. And I don't think any of us are. It does come, like the Bible says sometimes, like a thief in the night. It just takes us. And we have all these big plans and these big dreams, and we think we really are great beings, but we kind of get egotistical about it. We think we're these great beings, and we got all these plans we're going to do, and then sometimes your plans don't mean shit. Death just comes like that. So without exploring consciousness, what I'm trying to say is it's just a way to get ready for those things. And not only that, a way to help others too. Because if you actually believe, instead of just say, yeah, I know I'm more than my physical body, but if you really believe that, then really, how important is your short existence here compared to the vast span of who you really are? There's some important stuff that happens. Don't get me wrong, but let's say you have thousands of lives. Let's just say that. So this person that you think you are, this identity that you're so involved in here that you think you are, how important is that, really, in the end? It's something to think about. Another file report demonstrates a fascinating connection between events in Focus 23 and 27 and an episode in the participant's earlier life when he was a hospital intern. He says, in my first attempt at retrieving, I met a little girl at Focus 23 who was about 11 years old. She said she recently died of leukemia at a hospital in Ohio. And I explained to her that I was there to help her in her transition to another level. She seemed to understand and trust me, and she stretched out her arms to reach towards me. I did the same, and as we hugged, I suddenly experienced an overwhelming feeling of love that engulfed my whole body. It was a feeling I've experienced only a few treasured times in life. See, that's sad to me. That's totally sad. A feeling I've experienced only a few treasured times in life. Another reason to explore consciousness. We don't love each other deep enough. This guy should have, I think our pets feel this love more than humans do. That's pretty sad if you think about it. Our fucking egos are so, everything to us, man, that we're just not even getting to experience deep love. Soon, we were traveling, moving towards Focus 27, and as I hugged her again and said goodbye at Focus 27, this feeling of love returned for a few brief moments. I never checked to see if the name and address she gave me were real. The experience was real and meaningful beyond measure, and I understood shortly thereafter that I had been given the opportunity to complete an episode in my life which had been unsolved for 25 years. It began when I was a medical student. I had befriended a little girl with leukemia, and she was in and out of the hospital repeatedly during the 3 years I knew her. At the end of one very busy Sunday afternoon during my pediatric internship, I was writing orders and charts when she came in and asked if she could talk to me. I told her I couldn't at the moment because I was busy, but maybe later, and she went back to her room alone. But she could not wait for me, and shortly thereafter, one of the nurses came to tell me that the little girl had been found lying in her bed in her room, and she was dead. Had I just taken a few moments, I could have helped her in the transition that she knew was coming. Finally, 25 years later, I was given another opportunity. This is A.L. Dahlberg, M.D. and Ph.D. from Providence, Rhode Island. That's a real, I believe this doctor, man. That's a real thing that happened to him. Really.
It's quite a coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's pretty freaking crazy. I think the craziest thing is that I suddenly experienced an overwhelming feeling of love that engulfed my whole body. A feeling I've experienced only a few treasured times in my life. You know, you're being sold this whole idea, and this is my opinion, and you can take it or leave it, I don't care. But you're being sold this whole idea of this carrot on a stick. All the good shit happens after you die. You're going to go to some place of bliss. Don't you think that that would be one big mechanism of control? Because if you were truly free of any belief systems, any conscious motivations, anybody trying to, put you in a ball somewhere and then tell you to try really hard and be really good so that you will get to experience this ultimate love way after you're dead. Meanwhile, consciousness is constantly trying to, bring life into here so that we can experience it physically with each other. It's just like, even Robert Monroe saying we don't figure this stuff out until 3000 BC or whatever. I don't know if that's real or not, but it sure seems like it's going to take a hell of a lot longer for us to figure it out. There's no reason why any of us should be saying this. Nobody. There's always going to be bastards, and it is a predatory system. But if you're capable of loving other people, let go of the freaking identity that you have for yourself, because it's a very short one. It's not going to last very long. Let go of your fears and your walls and start loving people, man. Just let it go. It's like consciousness is trying to wake us up all the time, trying to bring heaven on earth all the time. And we're so protecting ourselves and trying to survive so much, and deep. It's like, oh, then we get real scared and we'll go, you over here, you tell me how it is. You tell me, you seem confident. You tell me how it is. Yeah, that's what most people are doing deep down. And then I'll just follow that system. Because it either feeds the ego or validates what they believe, and still they're clueless because they haven't taken the time to love as deep as they possibly can or explore their own consciousness enough. It's better that we just keep reminding ourselves that we know everything and shut the world out, My blood pressure's high today. The next report is taken from the transcript of a tape made not in the Lifeline course itself, but during a laboratory session. I think, it's nighttime and I'm in a boat approaching a rocky coast. It might be the west coast of Ireland or Cornwall, and the rocks are tall and upright with water slapping against them. And I might just be above the boat, and ahead there is a cleft or shaft in the rocks, so I'm going into this. I'm not afraid. The walls are black with wetness shining on them. I'm turning into a tunnel or narrow cave, and now I'm in a cave. There's a light reflected off the rocks so that I can see. I'm going down, and there's a fissure in the roof above. There's a little dog that I've seen before. I've come through a long, narrow tunnel, so narrow, how could anyone get through here? And now I'm being shown what it's like to have the weight of a rock on my chest. It doesn't hurt, but it's as tough as a big piece of rock is lying across me. It's as though, I said tough, it's as though a big piece of rock is lying across me. It's showing me what some would experience if a mine shaft or something like that collapsed on them. But energy is pouring in, and I must relax. I'm being shown what it's like to be trapped in a confined space deep inside a rock formation. It feels as if someone is holding my left hand. There may be somebody there if I can reach him. Yeah, his name is Gregory, and he's coming loose from a place he's been stuck in. Low down to my left in the rocks. Now he's sliding out. He's very relieved to come out. He didn't think that anyone would find him. He's 31 years old. I feel he was climbing on the rocks and the tide came in, and he found the opening like I did and just went down. And I feel that because I was shown the compression of rock, the weight, that there must have been a rock fall and he was trapped. He's still holding my hand, and I'm trying to find out. Black. Is that his surname? He wants a hug. He's been here a long time. Since 1948. What shall I do? Take him to the center? But how do I know? Fix the idea of the center in my mind and extended for it. He'll be comfortable there and looked after. In other words, I think that's the park. He understands. He's leading me now. He knows where to go, and I tell him I love him, and he's free to go, and he's moving away now. I'm being taken to a more comfortable place. It's strange. When I asked to be moved after Gregory had left, I picked up on the fear he'd experienced when he entered the cave, when he died. It was as though his fear had permeated the rocks, and after he left, the fear left also, and I felt it brush past me as if I were in its slipstream, and now it's time for me to return. And this was a guy, his name was Jim Russell from Cambridge, England, and this was an experience he had during the Lifeline process. So I think we are on the last chapter of the book. Now, at the end of the book, there is where he talks about the Monroe Institute. There's a whole bunch of research papers and reports. He talks about the Going Home series, and then there's about the author. If I have time, I'll probably do about the author, but not really going to do anything else other than that. Because we have gotten to the end of this journey, man, together. That's a pretty damn cool thing, actually. Right. Restroom break. Be right back.
didn't want to know. I just didn't want to know. Best to keep things in the shallow end, 'cause I never quite learned how to swim. I just didn't want to know. I didn't want. Close my eyes just to look at you. taken by the seamless vision. I close my eyes, ignore the smoke, ignore the smoke, ignore the smoke. Calling out the ashes, turning with such a lovely color for you. Calling out the ashes, turning blue. Just didn't want to know. Mistook the nods for approval. Just ignore the smoke and smile. Calling out the matches, turning with such a lovely color for you. Calling out the matches, turning with such a perfect color for your eyes. Calling out the matches, turning with such a lovely color for you. Calling out the matches, turning you while I just sit and stare at you.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Head & Boulders, the all-natural shampoo for people who want to wash their hair the old-fashioned way, by going down to the river and banging their heads against a rock. That's Head & Boulders, now available in granite or our original limestone sand.
Introducing Monarch Mindwear, the neural headband that filters out doubt, fear, and original thought. Think faster, feel less, belong completely. Monarch Mindwear trademark, a product of Solaris Group.
Strange thing, every night around this time, the station plays the same frequency drift.
Confirmed. Sequence repeats every 86,400 seconds. Cause unknown.
Feels like deja vu, or maybe time's just buffering.
You've said this.
Huh. Maybe I have.
End of loop approaching. Reset in 3, 2.
You're listening to Fringe FM, and so am I.
Attention listeners. Prolonged exposure to fringe frequencies may cause altered perception, deja vu, and inconvenient enlightenment. If symptoms persist, don't change the dial.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Mouthwash and Spray Wax. Not only will Ed's get your breath super fresh, but your friends will be able to see their reflections in your teeth. And remember, Ed's Mouthwash and Spray Wax comes in a genuine glass bottle, so you can break it if you want to.
All right. So I think this is the last or the end for sure, of the ultimate journey, for sure. And it kind of has a bittersweet ending, I think, but it's still pretty cool. Because now I'm remembering everything. Like, it's all coming back to me, you know. Let's see. So this is called Taking Time Out. You have to remember that Robert Monroe's wife had cancer, I think, during this time. So pretty sad, but that's a part of it. It's a part of life. It has to end at some point. And so the variable, my wife, Nancy's illness, seemed under control for the moment. It had indeed forced a new direction, or the beginning of a close understanding of the effect of perhaps the greatest variable each human mind consciousness must face. And that is the transition from physical life to another energy system that we label death. It was astounding that I had passed over it so casually. I wonder about the signal that I may have brought back with me from my exploration, and if it is there, I cannot perceive any result. Did thousands of human I-there units bonded to our cluster receive the signal? And I'm sure some in my own I-there will know. At least it will be fun playing the inspect role, and yet all of this slipped into the background. And this is called A Song for the Unsung. It was the end of a hospital visiting hours in Nancy's room, and I bent over and kissed her forehead. "Are you sleepy?" And she said, And I said, "Well, you look better tonight." Damn, this is sad, man. It's going to be tough. And she says, "I'm fine. Want to go play later?" "In 27, she said. "For starters," I said. Yes. "All right, I'll see you later. I love you." And then she responded, "I love you." And at around 8 in the evening, we received an urgent call from the hospital and were at her bedside by 9. It had been extremely devastating for me to visit her in the hospital before this for several reasons. Now it was different. Her arms and hands were limp and cold, and she was breathing in short, deep gasps followed by a long pause. But it was looking into her unblinking eyes that told me that Nancy was no longer there. And at 12:15 in the morning, her body finally stopped breathing. Later, the Lifeline team reported they had taken her to 27 sometime between 7:30 and 8, and that she was safe and warmly greeted there. This was approximately the time the hospital noted the beginning of her terminal breathing. The medical people call it, I guess, Sheen Stokes or something like that, or it's kind of like fake breaths, but she's not really there. It was later that I realized such breathing was familiar to me. It was the same breathing that I had heard when the old man was dying in the St. Louis flophouse back when I was a vagrant teenager. The same breathing I heard when my favorite cabin cat, Fuzby, died of leukemia while lying in my arms 3 days before Nancy's exit. I was shocked how unprepared I truly was. The biggest glitch or variable in my life, I saw it coming. Plenty of portents, all the backup experience, and still, hundreds, no thousands, knew her for the bright, warm, and joyful personality that she was. Nancy Penn Monroe. Her ancestry went back to a Virginia family in the years before the American Revolution and living on land granted them by the King of England. Her upbringing led her to live the life of a Southern lady in its most gracious form, always thinking of others first, always a smile with her greeting, always refusing to bring hurt to others in any form, always giving of herself. There never was any hate in her for anyone. In reality, she truly was the co-founder of the Monroe Institute. Were it not for her, there probably would not have been any such organization. She participated in all major and minor discussions and decisions, activities, and even research. Thus, her thoughts are sprinkled through everything that the Institute has produced and represents, the programs, the tapes, the public policy, and certainly the many friends worldwide. We had known each other in a casual social manner for 7 years and had been married for 23. Even before we met, Nancy had a deep interest in the paranormal. She also had been a school teacher, music and piano teacher, an interior decorator, real estate manager, and was raising 4 children. She had commenced writing 2 books, one a modern version of the Scarlet O'Hara, and the other a post-physical story about the city not made with hands. Both remained unfinished, and in spite of a waiting typewriter and word processor, she didn't have time. It's impossible to be at the Institute without encountering the result of her thoughts. And as you enter, the bushes and flowers around the gatehouse are her selection. The interior design of the building itself is her adaptation of a plan started by others. And as you start up the hill, the tall row of trees on the right is there because of her idea. At the center itself, all of the trees and shrubbery were selected and placed by her. Inside all 3 buildings, most of what you see is Nancy Penn Monroe. The carpets, the walls, the fixtures, the tables and chairs, the plates, the silverware, the mugs, even the napkins. In the east wing of the center, the club dining room was, or is, in its entirety, the latest of her creative efforts. So now the main building has a new name, the Nancy Penn Center, and she was too self-effacing to permit it before this moment. Where is she now? To make a very long story very short, when she developed breast cancer, Nancy accepted the orthodox route for treatment. This meant surgery to remove the tumor and a number of lymph nodes, chemotherapy, and radiation. Each slowed up the process, but no more. 2 nights after her departure, I thought I had cooled down enough to attempt to visit her, which I did. The result was an emotional explosion that included every nuance existing between 2 humans deeply in love, all up front and simultaneous, without the limitations of time and physical matter. It was a great effort to return, and it took days to recover. A second attempt a week later brought the same result. It was simply just too much to handle. Until I learned more, I had to put up a shield that restricts any kind of non-physical activity on my part. No more interstate, pro tem, or contacts with friends in that area. Only the I there of me. I began to drift in Nancy's direction, even in the deepest sleep, so the barrier had to include this state too. Thus, my rest is greatly impaired. I now have a new challenge, a massive adjustment to make, one I hadn't considered, a very new direction. Can I live in 2 worlds at the same time? With Nancy in 27, and here with our lonely fur family, 7 cats and 2 dogs in a lonely house? I don't know. And still another voice from my eye there insists, once the transition is made, only the heavily addicted remain closely attached to the physical life they have just departed, and according to your data and others. For the most, the resonance, interest, attachment begins to fade almost immediately, some slowly and some rapidly, but it does. And all of your data shows this, except for the rare ghost application, and even with your big L as binding as it is. How long will your Silver Queen Lady remain in and around your Focus 27? You don't know, and we don't know. And like all of the others, she is exposed to attractive freedoms you of all humans are very aware of. But you can't leave here. Not at this time. You have too many things to complete. Remember your mother and her cello. She taught you something without even knowing that she did. And don't forget, at the very least, you know that your Silver Queen will be with you at final departure when we wink out in the 35th century. What more do you want? And that is the end of his book, which I think is a perfect ending because he ended it in the deepest of love messages of all things. Not conscious exploration, not how great and wonderful he is, not anything other than the deepest of lessons learned by consciousness itself. Which I think is a good thing to end on. But I do want to give this guy, let me see, I don't want to read the Going Home series because that's the same thing as what he just talked about. But I will read the last part here so we can set the record straight at the end of all things here when it comes to the Monroe Institute. Robert A. Monroe was the founder of the Monroe Institute, a nonprofit educational and research organization devoted to the exploration of human consciousness and practical methods of accelerated learning through expanded forms of consciousness. The Institute is internationally known for its work and the effects of sound waveforms on human behavior. Mr. Monroe, the son of a college professor and a medical doctor, mother, received his degree from Ohio State. I don't know why that says medical doctor mother. It received his degree from Ohio State University after studies in engineering and journalism. He then entered the radio broadcasting industry as a writer and director of programs. And in 1958, as a broadcasting executive in New York, he began to undergo spontaneous experiences that drastically altered his life and are documented in his first book, Journeys Out of the Body. In 1985, his second book, Far Journeys, was published. In astonishing detail, this book describes Monroe's work with people who travel in time and space with illuminating results through the use of the process known as hemisync. The book offers a new awareness, a different overview of the untapped resources and limitless possibilities of the human mind. In addition to his interest in human consciousness and his accomplishments as an author, Mr. Monroe owned and operated radio stations in Virginia and North Carolina. He later formed Jefferson Cable Corporation and as president guided the construction and operation of cable TV systems in Charlottesville and Waynesboro, Virginia. And since 1976, Mr. Monroe has devoted his life to exploring the potentials of human consciousness at the Monroe Institute through research and education. Using his patented audio sound technology, hemisync, Mr. Monroe made his transition on March 17, 1995. The Monroe Institute is located in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Institute continues to offer residential programs in human development and continues to research the effects of the hemisync technology on human behavior. The legacy of Mr. Monroe is limitless, and the Institute will continue to explore and expand his vision here through his guidance there. And then if you're interested in the activities of the Monroe Institute, you can go to contact them. I guess it's 62 Roberts Mountain Road, Faber, Virginia, 22938. And I wonder if this number is still the same, 804-361-1252. That's it, man. We made it to the end. I cannot damn believe it. I never, when I started doing this, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to go through like all 3 books on the air, but it had to be done. So it is done. Now we must focus on Halloween. Wolf, did you come? Are you back from the ether? I know Bryce is here. I can see him.
I think so. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, dude, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that book has gone so quick, hasn't it? It's gone so quick.
Yeah, the third one goes by pretty quick. Yeah. It's really...
that was pretty sad about
his wife?
It was pretty sad about her. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to know a little bit more, like, if he did visit her a bit more, how long before she kind of disappeared, moved on as well,
Yeah, I don't know, man. It would be interesting to know that, but I'd like to imagine that when he transitioned, that she was right there in that place waiting for him, because they were doing all this stuff together anyways, right? Like, I don't think you could marry a cooler chick than that. It's almost like he met the perfect woman, and then he gave her pretty much all the credit, which, I think is a very sweet thing. It's like, because there's so many people that pat themselves on the back in this field, It's pretty cool. I got nothing else, man. I don't know what else to do. I'm just so glad that we came to the end of this. Like, it had to be done. We went through hours and hours of the Monroe story, and I think if you're willing to go through it, it's funny to me, all the people that have so much to say about Robert Monroe and his journey and who he was and all this other stuff, and they get really loud and about it and all, but none of them ever take the time to like really go through his story. Imagine someone getting really loud about you, telling big, massive stories about you, and like never really getting to know you, not even in the smallest level. That's the internet, folks. That's what's going on today. And mass quantities all over the place. Like, everybody knows so much about everything, but most people really don't have any clue to get to know the people that they're talking about or the event. I mean, we got AI doing all the research for us. Even though we should be doing it, AI hasn't fully learned. We should still be doing our own research. We say so much about people and who we think they are and what's really going on, yet we take zero time, damn near close to zero time, actually trying to get to know these people or what they're about. So for all of you that listen to this broadcast from the beginning to the end, now, anytime people bring up the Monroe Institute or the Gateway Experience, there's probably a 90% chance that you're going to know way more about the whole situation than they do, as opinionated as they are. You know, I think the one thing that just, I don't know why, I try not to get upset about a whole lot of stuff, but the one thing that got under my skin was I seen this one girl just going around and all these like YouTube videos under anything about Robert Monroe going, oh, he's a pedophile, he's a CIA-controlled pedophile. And I'm like, where in the hell is this lady getting this stuff from? Who is telling her this stuff? You know? And then I looked it up, and there was a Catholic priest named Robert Monroe, who isn't Robert A. Monroe, who got in trouble for some stuff like that. It has nothing to do with Robert Monroe. And yet every time one of these videos come up, I would see her down there just, y'all don't be fooled, it's a pedophile. And I'm thinking, you know, I love the internet. I love technology, but damn, man, it has caused some ignorance. Like, in one sense of the word, like, it's made us more informed. But in another sense of the word, it's like it's caused such lazy ignorance that it's, I hope that improves. And it ain't Google's fault. You can't blame Google, because I've actually like tried out to be in their service, what is it called? The search guide quality rater or whatever. And their guidelines are pretty damn strict. So it's not Google's fault. It's our fault. Like, we spread so much crap around and then the internet tries to fix it. That's all it's doing. Honestly. Anything else you guys want to say? Because I think I'm going to roll out of here, man. I don't have any other plans to talk tonight. You know, we got to duck out before the signal takes us over, you know? Because if it gets too quiet, it'll just take us over.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Any last words, Flying Bryce, on the Monroe stuff before we move on? Because we are going to move on.
No, I don't have anything really.
Cool. Well, then that's that, folks. I'm glad that some of you guys made it to the last broadcast. It's not the last broadcast of Fringe FM or Lighting the Void, but for the live broadcast of the Monroe journey, because it's been a damn full circle long. I can't think of the words for it. It's been an intense one for me. All right, you guys. We'll see you guys more than likely tomorrow night if the signal allows it. And I love each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We got here. Night, y'all. Sweet dreams.
Tombstones climbing up the sky to claim the boredom and the whine of the radiator, to freeze the fates that intertwine, unresolved and undefined in this echo chamber. Just like Lazarus, you know, there's an operator, some strange passenger inside. To that strange power I'm resigned like an iron anchor.